Awareness cannot be known. It is that which knows. Tantra is the use of our experience to guide our spiritual life. We may seek to exercise to become more fit or make more money. And this has its benefits, but only at the level of self-image. The path to liberation is a radical shift in your identity from an insecure ego to the vastness of awareness itself. We see even the most heinous manifestation of Shakti as a way to expand. As humans, we seek happiness. We think that this thing or that thing will give us happiness, but the solution is to look inward. Shiva is the masculine force, pure awareness. Shakti is Shiva's power to experience himself. The Mahavidyas perform the functions of creation as the 10 wisdom goddesses. Each Mahavidya represents an aspect of our identity. They can help us work through what is holding us back in our liberation. As humans, we chase pleasure and avoid pain. However, it is not guaranteed that this will work all of the time. When we embrace our fears and use them to our advantage, this is a more optimal way of being. The main purpose of devotion to the Mahavidyas is to realize the falsehood of our ego self and instead reveal our true identity as awareness. Kali is the first. Her dance represents death. Our surrender and acceptance to what is gives us appreciation for new life in its place. Her skin is black, which represents space and the cosmos. She wears cut-off heads to represent freeing us from identifying with our ego self. She has a vertical eye, ever wakeful, a bloody mouth and fangs to show that everything is devoured in creation. She also dances on Shiva, who is completely unfazed, as he is pure awareness. Time is all about perception. Passion and immersion can make hours fly by. Awaiting something can feel like an eternity. A car crash can feel like slow motion. Raising children can go by in an instant. This spell of forgetfulness keeps us immersed in the dream of linear time. The shadow of Kali manifests around us in the chaos of war, selfishness, oppression, destruction of the environment. This shows us the certainty of everything being devoured by the universe. The root cause of this aggression is a sense of separation. Self-loathing, judgment, criticism, and blame are a result of the perception of separation from reality. When we have a desire, we think that when we have it, this will help free us from suffering. However, it wasn't the thing that made us happy. It was a temporary loss of self that made us happy. Dark forces, asuras, and light forces, devas, have a fight for the rule of the universe. Shakti takes the form of Kali and defeats an asura that can clone himself for every drop of his blood. Aggression can come in more subtle forms that devour every drop of perceived dark entities. Self-righteousness, for instance. We may have a preference for a lifestyle or political point of view and feel that we have to shove that down everyone's throats in order to convert them. However, this is taking one form of violence and exchanging it for another. We can practice nonviolence by accepting reality, even when it doesn't go our way. Once we identify the self, with a capital S, as opposed to the ego, we no longer feel terrified by Kali, but loved and protected. I quote from Tantric Kali, Secret Practices and Rituals. In her love game, she brings ecstasy and manifests and dissolves formations and worlds. All tantras arise from her. She is the creator of language. Intimacy with Kali is beyond all knowledge. Even revealed scriptures are useless to one who knows her. If she is misunderstood, there is no sadhana that will bear fruit. She is the essence of creation. Manifested as woman, intoxicated by desire, she frees the tantric practitioner from all desire except union with the divine. In her, the union of guru and disciple is achieved. Her deep nature remains secret. Visualize Kali in the center of your heart, on a white lotus. She leaves through the left nostril and is facing you. She is wild, with severed arms as a skirt, dark blue skin, almost black, long hair down to her knees, a long tongue, and loving gaze. Her power is terrifying to mortals and inviting to heroes. Another exercise is to set aside 15 to 30 minutes, get in a relaxed recitative state, and recall something that causes you discomfort. This can be a personal or worldly event. Now notice if the discomfort is caused from the event in itself or the perception you have of it. See if there's a narrative running which is causing the pain and suffering, and how you would view the situation now. Return to your body gently and bring back your awareness. In our day-to-day, we can be mindful of judgments we have as well. Tara's name translates to star. She guides us like the North Star, from our eye identification back to self. She looks similar to Kali, but has blue skin, symbolic of the sky. She also comes in other hues as well, which represent aspects of her energy. Tara also represents all of the energy in the universe. When we zoom into the atoms of my hand, for instance, the electrons rotate around the nucleus of the atom. The atoms are made up of smaller particles called quarks that can turn into waves of energy. Everything is made of waves of energy. Tantric sages describe Tara in three forms: the white or Sukla Tara, the pristine form of the I Am, the blue or Nila Tara, which represents the sky, the five elements, and the multicolored Tara, which represents the divine in countless forms and objects. The shadow of Tara is self-deception. Our true identity is eternal awareness. As we grew up in a Western society in particular, we were led to believe that the attainment of certain goals would fulfill us. This implies that we are not whole and perfect in ourselves, and this leads to seeking knowledge to become whole and complete. This lack belief, whether it be with love, career, spiritual attainment, seeking validation or approval, leads us to a deep state of dissatisfaction. We believe that the solution to our lack is in objects. Quote, when we get there, we can be happy. The remedy for Tara's shadow of self-deception is the light of truth. This self-deception can reinforce itself through the voices in our head. When we let go of limiting beliefs and realize we are bliss at our core, it dissolves the karmic patterns. This doesn't mean we let go of our responsibilities. In fact, we have a deeper sense of responsibility because our identity is larger than ourselves. The realization of Tara leads to the voices in our head dissolving, and for pure awareness to emerge in its place. This is a visualization from Tara, written by Rachel Wooten, PhD. Imagine that Tara is in front of you in the form of green light. Present are your mentors from any time, in the lineage of everyone who taught them, the Buddhas and the enlightened ones, all gathered around Tara in a circle. Present also are your friends and loved ones, and their friends and loved ones, an infinite number of beings receiving Tara's love and compassion along with you. Also visualize all beings that you have concern for, someone with an illness, health issues, someone you have a dispute with. Place all concerns at Tara's feet and declare, either loudly or silently, quote, for all of these beings and with all of these beings, I take refuge in Tara's completely awakened consciousness, in the wisdom teachings from all traditions, and in the communities of spiritual practitioners around the world who have in the past are now longing for awakening. Tripura Sundari is the goddess of desire. Obsessive desire is relieved through non-clinging. She has luscious skin that evokes the sweetness of youth, wears red attire and emits the radiance of the sun, sits on the throne of Brahma and Shiva, conceals and reveals the true nature of the cosmos. In regard to obsession, think of a time when you felt so enamored with someone that it made your heart race, or it even kept you up at night. You couldn't wait to hear from them again, or see them again. However, this clouds our judgment and perception. We can want something so badly that we fail to see it won't make us happy permanently. In our culture, taking action is the key to success. When our actions yield a fruitful result, we are happy. When our actions do not yield the result we want, we are upset. This keeps us in Sundari's karmic noose. Sundari is known as the Lalita, or playful one. She mischievously makes us look everywhere else besides ourselves for satisfaction. When we finally look inward, the light of non-clinging is revealed. By taking ownership of our desires, we can fulfill them without creating karmic baggage. You can desire a relationship without the expectation of the other person making you feel totally amazing 100% of the time. When we depend on external circumstances to fulfill us, they control us, binding us to Tripura Sundari's sugar-filled arrows. The fact that we identify as egos separates us from reality. We think that having this or that object will finally make us happy. One may believe that they need a partner to be happy. This puts their happiness on whether or not they're in a relationship, and also use the relationship to validate their ego. Being fixated on acquiring objects keeps us bound to karma, as symbolized by Sundari's flower-ridden arrows. We become dissatisfied and miserable. Paradoxically, this misery is satisfying because it satisfies our sense of lack. Contemplate the beauty of reality. This could be a person or something you find beautiful. Become aware of your desire to control it. Think about this object of desire and your strategy for obtaining it. You might not feel worthy of having it, or you might be desperate and do anything to get it. These vasanas, or karmic imprints, create obstructions in the subtle body which affects how we view the world. This creates obstructions, known as granthis, or knots, which occur along points in the spine. The navel granthi is named after Brahma and has the 3 lowest chakras, the root, sacral, and navel. They revolve around the need to be validated and comforted. Obstructions to these include insecurity, fear, and self-doubt. The heart granthi is named after Vishnu, and it preserves the ego self. When we get what we desire, it is strengthened, and when we don't get what we want, it is weakened. The third eye is Rudra granthi, which is named after Rudra, the destroyer. When our identification of our ego is dissolved, our true nature is revealed. Obstruction to the third eye is lack of discernment between what is illusion and what is real. When the lower 2 granthis are untied, we will see through Sundari's veil of concealment. The following is an exercise on longing. Focus on the number 1 thing you desire as much as possible. It can be a job, relationship, opportunity, etc. Notice the sensations that arise in your body. What does it feel like? When the thought goes away, notice the sensation, and notice what happens as it arises and fades. Are the sensations you experience innate to the object? You can go through this with as many desires as you wish. How do we fulfill our desires without creating karma? By right action, we fulfill our desires. By taking responsibility for our emotional and physiological well-being. We can desire a relationship, but without putting expectations on the other person to determine how we feel. We experience joy without being dependent on the external world. Clarity for desire can actually be used for transformation. This is known as bhakti. Chinnamasta is the force of separation and union. Light is in the cultivation of healthy sexuality. Perhaps that explains the head being cut off. I just had to geek out for a second. I love the imagery of heads getting cut off in Hinduism. It's it's the most metal thing ever. Brutal. Chinnamasta has skin as bright as lightning, known as the lightning bright goddess. An ecstatic self-beheading, which is symbolic of the revealing and concealing power of the divine. 2 attendants Varnini, and Dakini, standing in reverence, drinking her blood. The three of them are standing on Kama and Rati, who are getting their freak on. The shadow of Chinnamasta is addiction. Addiction to the self, to narratives we tell ourselves, various beliefs and ideologies, anything that we have a strong identity with. When we think of addiction, we might think of something like porn, drugs, gambling, booze.
The booze and the concha.
All the fun stuff in life. However, the strongest form of addiction is our misunderstood sense of self. Chinnamasta's beheading represents our mistaken identity with the mind and physical body. This puts us in a mentality of lack, and we seek wholeness. We are addicted to the stories we tell ourselves that enforce this false sense of identity. We seek validation in the external, as represented by the perennial coitus of Kama and Rati. We have an addiction to suffering. And you might ask yourself, what the fuck? How do I have an addiction to suffering? Suffering fucking sucks. Well, this is tricky and subtle. At a subconscious level, we suffer because we bring forth situations that validate our view of the world, which would explain the whole incel phenomenon. This is my video on how to stop being an incel in a few easy steps. Knowledge can be another form of addiction. Learning is good, but having too rigid beliefs about the world can make it difficult for novelty and new ideas to penetrate your consciousness. This fuels our addiction to being right. Realization of Chinnamasta comes by the realization that the I self is not separate from the greater self. Now here's a non-dual exercise which examines Chinnamasta's role in creation and separation. Think of someone you love. What does this arise as? A feeling, an image, a thought? Bring up your sense of self. What does this arise as? Is there a difference between the sense of your beloved and the sense of you when stripped of story? Is there a boundary between the sense of your beloved and the sense of you? Can you find it? So I want you to pause this and contemplate this for a minute or so. There is no boundary between ourselves and others in awareness because they both occur in awareness. This awareness is without any border or attribute, and this is your true identity. That concludes today's video on the Divine Feminine. It's a synopsis of Shakti Rising. This is Parker Tebow. Well, the title that the awareness currently embodies anyways, of Focus Shift Media. Be sure to comment, hit like and subscribe, and head on over to focusshiftmedia.net if you would like to work with us. Have a good week.